All right, ladies and gentlemen, now that you guys understand how the dynamic link works inside of Premiere Pro and After Effects, and how we even use After Effects in video editing, it's time to start understanding the program. And this is where a lot of you guys are going to be quite scared, right? You're getting into this very animation heavy program, and there's a lot of things you don't know. You just finished learning Premiere Pro, and you just got rid of that feeling of not knowing what's happening. Now you're diving back into it head first. Now, the reason we do this is so that you guys can learn these programs first and then practice them and become really, really good at it. So don't worry, 10 days down the line, you guys are going to thank yourself so much for going through this masterclass. So don't even worry about it. Let's just go ahead and move forward. And the first step in our After Effects journey is understanding how the UI works. Now, if you guys paid attention on the first course, you probably noticed that your UI looks a bit different to my UI. So excuse me, that's my mistake. That's because I rearranged some things based on what we use the most, which is what I'm going to be teaching you in this specific video. So in this course, we're going to be diving into the After Effects UI, understanding how these workspaces work. We're also going to be understanding what we're going to be using the most and what we're not going to be using. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So this in front of me right here is After Effects, and this is what yours should look like, okay? Now, with this being said, this is a lot like when you first dove into Premiere Pro. Because when you first dive into Premiere Pro, you have a workspace in front of you. You don't know what everything does, but there's a lot of different workspaces. Now, you being a Premiere Pro user, we understand that workspaces inside of Premiere Pro are kind of like sections of a factory. Remember when I gave you guys that example of a factory, a car making factory? Like you have a section for painting, a section for mechanics, and a section for so on and so forth. These sections are really good at what they do, but they're just a combination of different tools that are found around the factory. That's exactly what After Effects is like. After Effects is one big factory with a lot of tools. Specifically, if you want to see the tools, you can head over to Window and browse through all of these. There are so many tools inside of After Effects, and we call these tabs. Now, all of these tabs share some common things. Like some of them are really good for certain things and others are good for other things. And for that reason, Adobe has created workspaces for us. Like if you're someone who wants to go and paint their car, you're going to use Tool 1, which is a painter, Tool 2, which is a paint mixer, and Tool 3, which is the paint gas pump. So for that reason, the factory has put them all in one section called painting. That's kind of the same thing we have inside of After Effects. So we've got a bunch of these different workspaces. The nice thing about After Effects is we're basically never going to be using workspaces. We're going to stick to our default workspace. The only thing we're going to be doing is using specific tabs. And for that reason, we're going to be rearranging things around. And I'm going to teach you guys how to do that in just a moment. But this is the first thing you have to understand is that we're never, like with Premiere Pro, we needed different workspaces because we have, we're doing text and then we're doing, like later you guys will learn how to do color and audio. Like we need all these different workspaces. In After Effects, you don't need a single workspace. We're just going to be using tabs. And even I myself, when I'm making like the highest quality edits that I want to showcase on my channel, when I'm making the most complex edits, I only use tabs. And there's just a select, there's maybe 5 or 7 tabs that we have on the screen that we end up using. So don't worry, After Effects is actually a very simple program. So with this being said, let's dive right into the tabs. So what kind of tabs do we have? Well, the first tab you're going to have is a composition tab. And the way that we understand a composition is a lot like a sequence. So if I were to create a new project, and I don't want you guys to do this, but let's say I created a new project, the first thing you'll see is you can either create a new composition or a composition from certain footage. It's a lot like a sequence. You can either create a new sequence or sequence from the footage you've got. So this is kind of the sequence of After Effects. Now in your composition tab, whenever you have a composition, you're also going to be able to see some raw footage. So I want you guys to click on new over here and create a new project so that we're both on the same tab. Okay, step 1 to understand is that the composition tab over here allows you to create a new composition. When you click on new composition, you're going to be faced with a lot of settings that you guys are familiar with, like the width of your scene, the height of it in pixels, and a bunch of presets which you guys learned in the sequences. Okay, so there's no need to dive into that. Now I created a quick composition. There's no need to do this. To the left of our composition over here, you're going to see your projects panel. Now your project panel is the exact same as your Premiere Pro project panel. This is our Premiere Pro project panel and it holds our videos and files. It's the exact same thing in After Effects. You can drag in your videos and files here, or you can right click and import whichever things you are looking for. Okay, so I always drag and drop and you guys will be seeing how I use this later on. Now right next to your project file, you're going to be seeing the Effect Controls tab. The Effect Controls tab works exactly like Premiere Pro. It allows you to control certain effects. Under this tab, you guys are going to be seeing our timeline, and I've got a complete course dedicated to explaining the timeline for you guys because there's a lot of settings in the timelines and there's a lot of things to understand. But you don't need to worry too much about this. The timeline holds your layers, and layers work a bit differently than Premiere Pro's timeline, but it's the exact same as this. It just showcases your video and your audio and allows you to do the editing. It's got a playhead, it's got a composite, it's still like the exact same. Okay, and that is your timeline, and to the right of it you have this very long column. Now, the reason you've got a long column is because there's actually a lot of tabs inside of this, and you can select which one you want to use. So you can click on preview, which is the tab which allows you to preview footage. You can click on properties, which is the tab that allows you to change certain properties of your footage or text. Like, remember the properties panel in Premiere Pro where we could change the text size, the text font, the text color, so on? That's the properties panel here. You've got your align tab, which allows you to align things based on your scene. You've got the audio tab, which allows you to track audio meters, and the effects and presets tab, which holds all of your effects inside of After Effects. So all of these tabs are very straightforward. Let's go ahead and give them a quick revision. The composition tab allows us to create a new composition or to see what our footage looks like inside of our timeline. To the left of it, our projects panel holds all of our project files. Our effect controls panel allows us to control effects. Down under our timeline contains all of the editing. Up on the right side, the preview tab allows us to preview the footage. The properties tab works exactly like the properties tab in Premiere Pro and allows us to change basic properties of whatever we selected. The align tab allows us to align things to our scene. The audio tab allows us to track audio, and the effects and presets tab allows us to access all of the effects inside of After Effects. So with this being said, that basically breaks down all of the UI tabs, right? These are all of the tabs that are available. Now, I'll be showing you guys how we can make a very high quality scene setup inside of After Effects and exactly which tabs we're going to be using in just a moment. So don't worry too much about this. But with this being said, there's a few more things inside of After Effects. There's a lot of tools up here which we're going to be showing you guys how to use. Now, most of the things in After Effects, and this is the first time I tell you it in this course, but I'm going to be repeating this tons and tons of times over and over again, okay? So please keep this in mind. Inside of After Effects, there are so many tools that sometimes it's just better for you to learn them when you need them and learn how to use them when you need to use them, okay? Because there's just so much in this program. It seems simple right now, but there is so much, okay? There's a lot in After Effects. And After Effects is a very, very powerful program. So instead of teaching them all to you guys when you won't be using them right now and then having you guys forget them later on and then try and pick them back up in the future, instead, we're going to be teaching you guys the basics right now. And as we go through this masterclass, we're slowly going to need to increase our level of experience in After Effects. So we're slowly going to be learning more and more tools and more of the complex ones. Okay, like for example, up here you've got your cursor select tool and your hand tool. Your hand tool allows you to move around the scene. These are basic, right? And your zoom tool. But then you've got these three, and these are three 3D tools that allow you to move around your 3D scene, move across your 3D scene, and zoom in and out of your 3D scene. There's no need for me to explain that for you now. This is your rotate tool, which allows you to rotate your scene. This is your pan behind tool, which allows you to also move around your scene. This is your rectangle tool or your masks. And if you hold this down, you can access a bunch of different masks. This is your pen tool, which allows you to draw pen shapes, which you guys are going to be learning how to use. This is your horizontal type tool, which is just like your text tool inside of Premiere Pro. Here's your brush tool, your clone stamp, your eraser tool, your roto brush, and your puppet pins. Now, with this being said, there's a lot of these complex ones. Don't worry, you're going to be learning how to use all of them in this masterclass, but let's just take it bit by bit so that we can keep this understandable and very actionable. So this being said, you guys now understand the UI. How should we set up a very high quality UI? Well, let's first start by creating a new composition and clicking on OK. Now, once you have your composition, the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be increasing the size of our timeline. Once we increase the size of our timeline, we can now start to see things a bit better. The first thing I want you to do is just kind of size this down a little bit, okay? And I want you to leave the project files here because the projects panel, use your cursor tool. The projects panel is always important for dragging things in and out of your timeline. However, the effect controls we're not going to be using. So click on this little X right next to it. Okay, so let's leave our composition tab. Let's leave our projects tab because we're going to be using that to access our project files. And let's leave the timeline. Let's leave all three of those together. Let's go over to the right side. Your preview window, you're never going to be using that. So right click and close that panel. Your properties, you will be using that. So leave that there. Your alignment, you are going to be using that. Your audio, you're never going to be using that. So let's close this panel. And the effects and presets panel, you're definitely going to be using that. Now, this being said, is this the most optimal way to use these? Probably not. So for that reason, we're going to be selecting the effects and presets, and we're going to put it on the right side. So we can just select it from over here, and we're going to, we went ahead and removed it. That's okay. Yeah, this usually happens. It's all good. We can always access it under Windows, and we can go down to, there it is, effects and presets, and click on it, and we'll get access to it. Now, since I don't like its current position, I could just hold it down and then move it around. So I'm going to move it to the right side of our playhead here. So this is going to open it up. Okay, sorry, this moved in our aligned layer, so we don't want this. Let's move our effects and presets over to the right side. This is going to open this up as its own window, and I much more prefer having this instead of a long column. For that reason, I'm going to put my align tool in here as well, and my properties tool in here as well. And I'm going to expand these like this, okay? And I'm going to just make sure that this thing is at the center. So this being said, this allows us to access everything that we need whenever we need it, okay? Now, are there any more tabs that we're going to be using? Let's quickly go through these. First of all, your Align tab, you already know this. These animation composer ones, you're not going to have them because they're a plugin. I will teach you how to download all the plugins I have, which are mostly free, later on this masterclass, so don't worry about it. Audio tab, we won't need that. Brushes tab, we won't need that. The brushes tab allows you, if you are using any brushes, to control the settings for the brushes. Character tab, won't need that. Content aware, won't need that. Essential graphics, won't need that. Info, no. Learn, no. Libraries, no. Lumetric scopes, no. Mask interpolation, no. Media browser, metadata, motion sketch, paint, paragraph, preview, progress, properties. Not going to need any of those except properties. Okay. Now we've got your tools tab, your tracker tab. You probably will be using this in the future, but not right now. Right now, we don't need to learn how to use this. Okay. And that's pretty much it. And then you've got the rest of your other tabs. So these are pretty much everything that you're going to be using. Your main tabs, which you're going to be using most of the time, are your timeline, your preview window, and your effects presets. Those are super crucial, but most of our work is going to be done inside of our timeline. As a matter of fact, all of our work is going to be done inside of our timeline. Inside of our timeline, I'm going to dedicate a whole course explaining this for you guys. The final thing I want to go over inside of our UI masterclass, which is this one, is everything that's under your projects panel. This over here decides just how zoomed in you are. So you can actually zoom in to 100%. You can zoom out to 12%. And if you don't like it, you can use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And you can hold down your scroll wheel to open up your hand tool and move this around. Okay. Optionally, if you want to do this the traditional way, you can always select your hand tool and then move around the scene like this. And whenever you want to center it back, click on this and click on fit. Or you could just literally hold down your center, like your scroll wheel, and press it down, and you'll be able to move everything like so. This is super useful because we tend to move around our scene a lot inside of After Effects. Awesome. Right next to it, you've got your render quality. So you can render things at full quality. You can render them at half, third, or quarter resolution. This is just like the Premiere Pro fractions, which just allows us to view things at a lower resolution for our PC to be able to render it. So don't worry too much about this. And to the right of it, you have a bunch of settings. So your fast previews are a way that After Effects can render things quickly with less effects. Your transparency grid is if you want a background to be black or transparent. We usually go with black. Your mask outline is when you select shapes inside of After Effects, you have a mask that draws around them. You can toggle it on or off. Let's leave that on. And your save grids, you can click on title action save, which allows you to see where the titles should be placed. Like this center box is where your titles should be placed. The further out you go, the less visible things are. You also have some grids. You've got all these kinds of grids. You've got proportion grids. You've got guides, rulers, whatever you need. There's so much. Okay. I usually like to just keep all these off and I'm basically good. Okay. So this being said, that's pretty much it in terms of our UI. Now you understand what everything does inside of After Effects. Let's start slowly learning and understanding how things work inside of this program. And the first step of doing this is understanding how the timeline works. So for that reason, I've dedicated an entire course where I'm going to be breaking down for you guys how the timeline works inside of After Effects, and I'll see you guys there. Take care.